When you look at a cruise ship brochure, you usually just see the fantasy.
Oh, absolutely.
It is all water slides and infinity pools and lobster
Open up
tails.
in a new country every morning.
Exactly. It is the ultimate switch off your brain vacation. But then I start reading the actual industry reports, the stuff that really isn't meant for the passengers, and that glossy white paint starts to peel away pretty quickly.
It does. I mean, underneath the fantasy, you find a massive, heavy industrial complex.
Yeah.
You have global economics dictating where these billion-dollar assets move. You have marketing teams just manufacturing cultural moments out of thin air. And you have high-stakes engineering where safety protocols are literally life and death matters.
And that is the duality we really want to get into today.
Yeah.
Because for this deep dive, looking at the sources from February 2026, we have 3 distinct stories that perfectly capture that entire spectrum.
Right.
We have a massive game of risk playing out on the global map, with Costa Cruises effectively admitting that the Asia market isn't what they hoped it would be.
Which is a huge signal for the global economy, by the way, not just for travelers.
Totally. And then we also have Princess Cruises betting the absolute farm on American history, trying to turn the U.S. 250th anniversary into a reason to just flood Alaska with ships.
Yeah, that one is fascinating.
It really is. And finally, we have to talk about the machine itself. We need to dissect a pretty sobering interim report regarding a fatal elevator accident on the Arvia.
That last one is tough, but it is so essential. It brings home the reality that these aren't just floating hotels. They are complex industrial sites operating 24/7.
Right. So our mission today is to understand how these floating cities balance the marketing fluff with the economic reality and, of course, the operational safety. And I want to start with this Costa Cruises story because the sheer scale of it is just mind-boggling.
We are talking about the Costa Serena here.
Yes, the Costa Serena, a ship that has been a staple in the Asian market for nearly a decade.
Right, and the headline is that it is returning to the Mediterranean for the summer of 2027.
But it is not just taking a quick shortcut through the Suez Canal to get there. This is a massive logistical odyssey. They are turning a standard repositioning cruise into a 65-night world cruise starting in late 2026.
It is a massive redeployment. But, before we get excited about the itinerary, we really have to look at the why.
Right.
Why move a 112,000-ton ship that holds nearly 4,000 people from Asia to Europe?
I assume it is not just because the captain wanted some authentic pasta.
Hardly. It is a yield game. The source material is very clear here. European demand is outpacing Asia's rebound.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So for a long time, the industry thought China and East Asia were the future golden goose of cruising. Everyone was sending their biggest, newest ships there.
Right, the untapped market.
Exactly. But the post-pandemic bounce back there has been slower and just more complicated than anticipated. Meanwhile, Europeans are traveling in absolute droves right now.
So Costa is looking at this massive asset sitting in Tokyo and thinking, you are just not making enough money over here.
Exactly. A cruise ship is a mobile asset. I mean, if a hotel in Tokyo isn't filling rooms, you can't just move the building to Rome.
Right.
But with a ship, you can. Now, it costs a fortune in fuel and logistics to do it. But if the yield, which is the amount of money per passenger per day, is significantly higher in the Mediterranean, you move the ship.
But 65 nights? That is a long time to be at sea. I mean, think about the logistics of that. You are taking a crew that is used to short, maybe 4 to 5 day regional cruises in Asia, and suddenly they are crossing the Pacific Ocean.
It is a huge operational shift. You have to change literally everything.
Like what?
The food supply chains, the entertainment on board, even the currency they operate in.
Yeah.
And you have to sell those cabins. You cannot sail a ship that big empty for 2 months. It would be a financial disaster.
And I guess that is where this world cruise marketing angle comes in.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the route, and it is fascinating. They depart Tokyo on October 18th, 2026. They hit Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, which is standard enough so far. But then they head into the deep Pacific. Fiji, Tonga, New Caledonia.
And that leg is crucial. They are targeting the bucket list traveler there.
And then they hit Easter Island. That really stood out to me. You don't see massive cruise ships stopping at Easter Island every Tuesday.
No, you definitely don't. It is remote, the infrastructure is incredibly limited, and it requires a massive detour from standard shipping lanes.
So why do it?
Including Easter Island is a massive signal that this isn't just a ferry ride back to Europe. They are selling it as a true expedition.
And for you listening, if you are a bit savvy about travel hacking, this is a classic repositioning scenario, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Usually these one-way trips are cheaper per day because most people just can't take 2 months off work to sail from Tokyo to Buenos Aires.
That is the secret menu item of the cruise world. Repositioning cruises offer the lowest cost per day of almost any sailing. Yeah, you get the same food, the same room, but because it is a one-way ticket and involves a lot of sea days, the price drops. However, Costa is trying to elevate this specific one by adding those exotic stops to keep the price point healthy. They don't want to give it away.
Right, they need to make money on the transit. So they cross the Pacific, they hit South America, Tierra del Fuego, Cape Horn, Ushuaia, and they end up in Buenos Aires just in time for Christmas.
Which is incredibly smart utilization of the asset.
How so?
Well, it is summer in the Southern Hemisphere at that point, so instead of rushing the ship to a freezing cold Europe in January, they keep it in South America for their first winter season there in 15 years.
Oh, wow, 15 years.
Yeah. They milk the asset in Brazil and Argentina until April 2027.
And then finally, April 2027, they cross the Atlantic to Italy. And this is where the personality of the ship just completely transplants.
It is a total Jekyll and Hyde situation.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, for 6 months, this ship is an explorer. It is doing transoceanic voyages, stopping at remote islands, navigating Cape Horn. But the second it hits the Mediterranean in May 2027, boom, it turns into a bus service.
A vacation factory.
Week-long cruises, 7 days, Taranto, Catania, Malta, Mykonos, rinse and repeat.
That is their bread and butter. High volume, high turnover.
Right.
That get passengers on, extract their vacation budget in 7 days, get them off, and load the next 3,000 people. It is definitely less romantic than Easter Island, but it pays the bills.
And it really shows the incredible flexibility of these modern vessels to switch gears from expedition to mass market instantly.
Exactly.
Speaking of mass market, let's pivot to North America. If Costa is playing a game of global strategy, Princess Cruises is playing a game of, well, let's call it patriotic bingo.
You are talking about the semi-quincentennial.
I am still struggling to say that word without tripping over it. The semi-quincentennial, the 250th anniversary of the United States in 2026.
It is a mouthful for sure, but for marketing departments, it is absolute gold.
Is it, though? I mean, I get it if you are a museum in Philadelphia. But Princess is using this to sell cruises to Alaska. I am trying to find the connection between the signing of the Declaration of Independence and a glacier in Juneau. It feels a bit tenuous to me.
Oh, it is manufactured relevance, pure and simple. But that doesn't mean it won't work. The strategy here is cultural storytelling.
Cultural storytelling.
Yeah. They aren't saying George Washington slept here in Skagway. They are framing it as celebrating the landscapes that make America beautiful. It is a unifying theme to bundle their products under.
And they are betting big on this bundle. I saw the numbers. In the source, Princess is deploying 8 ships to Alaska for the 2026 season. 8. That is a massive amount of capacity.
It is a capacity race right now. They have 180 departures scheduled, and they're bringing in the Star Princess, which is their newest ship, to debut there in May 2026.
That feels risky to me. I mean, sure, it is a big anniversary, but are people really going to say, hey, it is America's 250th birthday, I need to go look at a whale? What if the whole patriotic tourism boom is a bust?
That is exactly the risk. If you put 8 ships in one region, you are highly exposed.
Yeah.
If demand softens, or if the America 250 hype falls flat, you have thousands of empty cabins to fill every single week. And that is why you see the product differentiation. They aren't just selling the boat ride.
You were talking about the cruise tours.
Exactly. This is where Alaska is unique compared to, say, the Caribbean. You can't see the interior of the state from the water.
Right.
Princess has a massive infrastructure of rail cars and wilderness lodges. They have a 15-night national parks expedition tour.
Which actually sounds incredible. You do a week on the boat, but then you spend another week on land riding trains to Denali and Wrangell St. Elias.
And that is where the marketing pivot actually works. If the theme is the great American landscape, then spending a week deep in a national park actually fits the narrative perfectly.
Oh, I see.
It elevates the product from a standard cruise to a sort of grand tour of American heritage.
And they're spreading this to the East Coast, too, naturally. The Majestic Princess is doing the fall foliage, runs Boston, Newport, New York.
Which, to be fair, makes a lot more historical sense.
It does. That is the cradle of the revolution. That is a much easier sell for the 250th. But notice they are also including Hawaii.
Right.
The Emerald Princess is doing 16-night loops from L.A. to Hawaii.
I guess Hawaii is technically America, so it counts for the party.
It counts. But frankly, a 16-day round trip from L.A. is a very specific product. It appeals to an older demographic who has the time and perhaps hates flying, It is a slow, lazy way to see the islands.
Now, despite all this cultural storytelling, they aren't leaving it to chance. We have to mention the Princess Signature Sale.
Ah, the urgency lever.
Right. It runs through March 17th, 2026. Up to $600 off free third and fourth guests. That free guests bit is the tell, isn't it?
It is a huge tell. It screams families. They need to fill those third and fourth bunks in the cabins to make the onboard revenue numbers work.
Because the kids eat the food, but the parents buy the drinks and excursions. Exactly. It also tells us they are trying to lock in revenue now, early in the year, rather than waiting for the summer rush. They have 8 ships to fill in Alaska. They cannot afford to be passive.
So we have this shiny exterior. We have Costa chasing the yield in Europe. We have Princess wrapping the flag around a glacier to sell tickets. It is all very strategic, very polished. But, and I want to pause here, because it is so easy to get lost in the dream vacation narrative.
It really is.
But these ships are machines, complex, dangerous industrial machines. And sometimes the machine fails. We need to talk about the Arvia.
This is a pivot, but a really necessary one. We are looking at an interim report from the UK Marine Accident Investigation Branch, the MAIB.
Right.
It concerns a fatality on the Arvia, a P&O Cruises ship, which, by the way, is under the same corporate umbrella as Costa and Princess.
And this happened back in October 2025. And just like the Costa ship, this was during a repositioning cruise, Southampton to Tenerife.
The ship was full of passengers, likely sleeping or getting early coffee. But deep in the ship's core, a tragedy was unfolding. An electrical technician was crushed while working on a passenger elevator.
I read this report, and the technical details are chilling because of how routine it all seemed. It wasn't an explosion or a storm, it was a logic error.
A logic error is the perfect way to describe it. We need to walk through this carefully.
Okay.
It was just before 6:00 a.m. The technician and the senior electro-technical officer, they call it the CETO, were testing an elevator after overnight repairs.
Okay, so picture this for the listener. The elevator car is at deck 11. The technician leaves the car and goes up to deck 14 to check the shaft from above. He opens the doors at deck 14 to look down. The CETO is still down at deck 11.
Here is where the system failed the human. The CETO steps out of the elevator car at deck 11, and when he steps out, the elevator car doors close, and the shaft doors at deck 11 close.
To you and me, that is just doors closing. But to the elevator's computer, that means something very specific.
Think of it like a microwave. You know how a microwave won't start if the door is open?
Yeah.
That is a safety interlock. The moment you close the door, the microwave says, okay, my circuit is complete, I am safe to run. The elevator has the exact same system. When those doors closed at deck 11, the report says the safety interlocks were restored.
So the computer looks at its sensors and says, all doors closed, system is safe, ready for orders.
Exactly. It has no eyes. It doesn't know there's a technician hanging into the shaft 3 floors up at deck 14. It just knows the circuit is closed.
And because the system thought it was ready, it answered a call.
A stored call. Someone, or maybe a system test command, had called that elevator. Since the interlock was now safe, the brakes released and the car shot upward.
And the technician was at deck 14. The car came up from deck 11. He didn't stand a chance.
No. He was trapped between the moving car and the shaft wall. A medical emergency was declared at 6:02 a.m. He was pronounced dead just 5 minutes later.
It is devastating. And the ship had to immediately divert to A Coruña, Spain, to recover the body. But what makes this even heavier is that the MAIB report notes this isn't the first time something like this has happened. They referenced a similar death on the Carnival Ecstasy in 2015.
That is the part that really hurts. That was a decade ago. It raises a massive systemic question about the entire industry. Why are we still relying on safety protocols that allow this to happen?
It seems like a conflict between the smart ship and the human worker. The ship is designed for efficiency, to keep 5,000 people moving seamlessly. It is programmed to run at all costs.
Precisely. These ships are essentially cities. The Arvia holds over 6,000 people, including the crew. To keep a city that dense moving, you need heavy automation.
Right.
But maintenance is inherently manual. It is human. When a human enters a machine designed for pure automation, the risk skyrockets.
The investigation is looking at why the interlocks were allowed to reset. Like, why wasn't there a physical lockout key that prevented the elevator from moving no matter what the doors did?
That is the standard in many industrial settings on land. Lockout, tagout. You physically cut the power and lock it so the machine cannot turn on.
Right. You take the key with you.
Exactly. The fact that the system could reset itself while a man was physically in the shaft suggests a major gap between the operational pressure to keep things running and the basic safety of the crew.
It really forces you to look at the industry differently.
Yeah.
I mean, we spent the first half of this deep dive talking about cultural storytelling and world cruises. That is the product.
Yeah.
That is what we buy as consumers.
But the elevator accident is the hidden cost of doing business at this scale.
So when we zoom out and look at all three of these stories from February 2026, what are we actually seeing here?
We are seeing a mature, massive industry that is constantly optimizing itself. Costa is optimizing for yield-moving ships across the globe to where the money is. Princess is optimizing for relevance, using a national holiday to fill cabins in Alaska.
And the Arvia story shows us what happens when we optimize for efficiency in a way that might leave fatal safety gaps.
It is all about scale, isn't it? These aren't just boats anymore, they are floating logistics centers.
They really are. And for you listening, the next time you book a cruise, realize that you are entering a system, a highly tuned, global system. Whether you are snatching up a cheap repositioning fare or buying a luxury suite for the U.S. 250th anniversary, you are a data point in that optimization engine.
Absolutely.
And it leaves me with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. We are building these ships bigger and bigger. The Star Princess is going to be massive. The Arvia is already a giant. As we pack 6,000, 7,000 people onto a single hull, are we reaching a point where we need to stop regulating them like maritime vessels and start regulating them like industrial cities?
That is the big debate right now because the complexity of the machine might just be outpacing the rule book we use to run it.
A sobering thought to end on, but an important one. We'll be watching to see where Costa ends up and how that Alaska season shakes out. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
Stay curious, and we will catch you on the next one.